The floor to Collette Flanagan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. In my closing remarks, I would like to return to the idea of global solidarity against police brutality. Mothers Against Police Brutality does not fight alone. We stand side by side with other civil society organizations like Amnesty International, Brazil, and the UN Anti-Racism Coalition. This is a global fight. It will take more countries to summon the courage to join this egregious fight against police brutality. Perhaps it is time for a new convention on human rights and law enforcement, which can respond to changes in policing since the 1976 International Covenant on Civil and Human Rights. A new international convention would bring into sharp focus the ways that internationally recognized human rights are subverted by police, particularly the rights of persons of African descent. The work of the Independent Expert Mechanism, the Commission High Court, and the Human Rights Council on these issues, in our view, should lead to the creation of a working group to draft a new international convention on justice and human rights and policing. Not all UN conventions, of course, are observed by all member states, but these agreements among nations set standards of conduct by states and serve as the conscience of mankind for human rights. Thank you for having me again today.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Collette Flanagan.
I'd like to thank President Villegas and the Human Rights Council for inviting me here today. I founded Mothers Against Police Brutality because a police officer in Dallas, Texas, killed my son, my only son, Clinton Allen. Clinton was only 25 years old, a black father of infant twin sons. Clinton was unarmed the night of March 10th in 2013 when a Dallas officer shot him 7 times, 5 times in his chest, once in his raised left arm, and the final shot was in the back at close range. Clinton's killer contained almost every dimension of the current crisis in policing in the United States. My son was black, and a black person is 2.5 times more likely to be shot by police, to be shot to death by police in the U.S. My son was unarmed. This officer perceived my son as a lethal threat. And this officer was fully armed, a white officer. This officer escaped all criminal and civil accountability for killing my son. No charges, no indictment, no trial, and no damages. Clinton was one of the 1,000 people shot to death every year by the United States Police. Our family's grief and struggle are part of an ongoing national crisis. Police in the United States fatally shot more than 7,000 people within the years of 2015 through 2021. Of the roughly 1,000 cases annually of people shot to death by police officers in America, on average, less than 1% result in an indictment, and even fewer cases produce a conviction at trial. If we are to elevate human rights and policing, we will have to address 3 challenges: the use of deadly force, the judicial doctrine of qualified immunity, and the treatment of families and communities suffering from racial profiling, police brutality, and extrajudicial killings. The Supreme Court decisions in 1985 and 1989 governed deadly force policies in the United States to this date. The court has ruled that deadly force can be used only when the officer has probable cause to believe that the subject poses a significant threat of death to the officer or others, and that a specific use of force must be evaluated by what a reasonable officer would do. In these two rulings, the court has granted officers almost universal impunity, even when they shoot an unarmed person in the back, like my son Clinton. We cannot continue to justify the use of deadly force on an officer's perception of a threat. Officers who routinely shout and shoot at a suspect will always claim they feared for their lives. Many lives could be saved if the use of deadly force were based not on an officer's perception, but on the actual observable conditions at the scene. For example, police officers could be prohibited by law from using deadly force when they encounter a person who is unarmed, having a medical crisis, running or driving away from the police, or simply sitting in a parked vehicle. If I feared for my life as a shield against criminal prosecution, then qualified immunity is an officer's armor in civil court. Qualified immunity is an affirmative defense used by officers in wrongful death cases to keep from paying damages. We must take care of families that experience injury and death at the hands of police. We must make them whole. We must confront the vast unmet human needs in communities suffering from lack of opportunities, poverty, racism, communities that remain high crime areas despite decades of aggressive policing. This well-documented paradox argues not only for fundamental changes in policing, but also for increased public investment to change the social conditions associated with criminal activity. To end extrajudicial killings, we must go deeper within our struggling communities to organize a more sustained resistance. Mothers Against Police Brutality is building a national network of leaders among directly impacted families who have the staying power to actually deliver the necessary changes. Through our Fellowship Legacy program, now operating in 10 cities in the U.S., directly impacted mothers are gaining skills and experiences that will help them to become leaders in a broader national movement to change policing. The police force of the world are almost a world power in themselves. But for those of us who work to bring justice and human rights into law enforcement are a power as well. And I have no doubt that the collective power of conscience against injustice will have, as America's greatest theologian once said, the final word in reality. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Ms. Flanagan. And now